As schools around the country began to close, folks everywhere were talking about K-12 teachers needing to support children's learning from a distance. And there was a lot in the media about the struggles of those teachers and school systems. But what didn't get much attention is that their preschool counterparts were struggling with the same reality, particularly those in public preschool and public pre-K classrooms. But across other program segments as well, early childhood teachers also had either the mandate to continue to educate from a distance and or felt the professional and social responsibility to continue to support children's learning and development from afar. Teaching Strategies is the leading provider of teaching and caregiving resources and instructional tools to early childhood programs, reaching thousands of teachers and serving millions of children and families across the early ed community in public pre-Ks, kindergartens, Head Starts, early Head Starts, private childcare, military programs, and family childcare providers. So we're so fortunate to have the Vice President of Educational Content, Brian Mack, with us today. Brian's a former preschool teacher and center director, and she currently leads the team of early childhood experts, adult educators, and content developers at Teaching Strategies. Brian, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So can you talk a little bit about how Teaching Strategies shifted focus from primarily supporting teachers to care for and educate children to supporting teachers to support families to care for and educate children, and providing some direct support to families yourself?
Yeah, so the need to shift was super obvious and immediate. How to do it was overwhelming. As a former teacher and director, my heart and my mind ached to figure this out. And there wasn't best practices to lean on. There wasn't this toolbox. This was new. And as you mentioned, so much resources and press and conversations were around kind of that K-12 space. And so when I feel lost, I need to talk to folks doing the work day to day in programs. So as all of this started to become very real, very quickly, my first step was just to get on the phone with some folks from my team and other content developers and talk to actual leaders in the field who were living this day to day. So I think that first day that I was working from home, got on a call with leaders in early childhood from Detroit and New York City and Newark, New Jersey, and I needed to hear from them. What was their day-to-day like right now, and what were their priorities, and how could we help? And it was really comforting to just hear that everyone was a little lost in an odd way. That can be comforting to know that that's this shared space. But our priorities were all the same, right? Children needed to be safe, and we needed to figure out food first. And was everyone accounted for? And do we know how to get a hold of folks? And so all of those leaders were jumping into that, of course, first. But then hearing from them, like, how could teaching strategies show up next, right? Like, what's the priority? And so many of them didn't have time to prepare. So many programs, I think it was Detroit, they found out on Thursday afternoon that Friday they weren't coming back. So like literally no time to jump into, but serving the most vulnerable children across the country in some of these major cities, they didn't have a week or two to figure it out. Like they needed to immediately show up. So we jumped into our first priority was giving direct content to families. So last year, Teaching Strategies acquired Ready Rosie, which is a comprehensive family engagement solution that does many things, but at its core, it offers thousands of these modeled moment videos that show real families in their homes, at the laundromat, in their backyard, engaging in hands-on playful learning, different age siblings, a wide variety of family dynamics. So that seemed like the obvious first place for us was to just get some free content out there that teachers could just directly push to families. Before they had time to really sit and come up with a comprehensive plan and an approach, we just wanted to start getting content out so that families of Teaching Strategies and just across the nation, to anyone that could have access to it, that they could immediately be modeling for families who maybe for the first time were at home all day with their child as a primary caregiver in that setting. And modeling, it's just taking stuff out of the pantry and looking at it and talking about it. It's doing a freeze dance together for just a couple of minutes while you're trying to wash the dishes, put on some music and do this activity too. So that was our first step, was just to immediately build a free page that anyone could access to download some of this content to share with families, or just send families directly there. But then the next step was something that was really important to me and everyone kind of within our organization. Is we know that families at home, I'm home with my 3-year-old in preschool. If this hadn't been my life's work, I wouldn't know what to, like, I'm not a preschool teacher. I am, but most parents aren't. That we're not asking parents to just become preschool teachers from 8 to 4 every day. That's not realistic. They're working from home. They're having their own responsibilities. So the next ask was really to come up with some guided learning plans that programs could choose to share with families that weren't about an 8 to 4 schedule, but where we're highlighting those big times of day that are important. Kicking off the day together with a fun activity, setting some intentions, reviewing a schedule for consistency, jumping into some study exploration together, and then giving some helpful tips to parents around routines. And how they could maximize those. So that was kind of our next step, was to just get that kind of out there again for free for everyone through our Classroom Connect page. And we've had over 100,000 downloads of that content. So it definitely felt like it was filling a void for programs who still need to have some flexibility on how to meet the need, but wanted a jumping off spot because a lot of teachers didn't have their resources in front of them.
And I know you're hearing a lot from teachers and administrators about the worries and challenges, and you're trying to address those as they come up. But among those worries is what's going to happen next school year, and how can programs prepare for a continuity of care and learning in the face of uncertainty. We don't know, if it'll be in and out of programs, what those ratios will look like, et cetera. So what are you doing to make sure, to the best of your ability, that these programs you're supporting are prepared?
Yeah, I think Kylie, you nailed it perfectly. There is so much unknown right now. So I think in our conversations, we're trying to just keep bringing us back to what do we know is most important. Yes, there aren't this series of research-based best practices to lean on in this setting, but the research-based best practice of what's most important to children, what's most important to families, that safety, that security, that consistency, that familiarity, like those are all the things that still matter. We just have to get creative and be innovative to think about how we show up in those ways for children and families. So we're doing a couple things. I think the biggest one is just continuous dialogue. We want to be there as support. While teachers are showing up for everyone right now, we want to show up for teachers. So through hosting town hall webinars, I think we've had close to 40,000 participants on webinars that we've been hosting a couple times a week on different topics. We've kind of shifted gears to a lot of our webinars to have customers on, sharing their priorities and being vulnerable about some of their missteps so others can learn from them. It really has created this whole new digital community of sharing that information. So I think that's been a big part, is just us helping to facilitate some of those stories getting out there, while at the same time reminding what those priorities are. But then again, offering some additional things within our resources. So opening up more opportunities for family connection digitally to share observations back and notes. For within our Ready Rosie platform, we spoke about with those modeled moments, adding in some components that are familiar to children who maybe have been enrolled in a creative curriculum classroom, to hear and see some of those similar songs that they're familiar with and activities, and help parents understand a little bit of the philosophy behind the kinds of things that are coming home. So I think it's been a running theme, has been the why behind what we're doing, and really trying to bring that to the conversation. The how may look a little different for every district, but if they can keep remembering the why behind the decisions they're making, then hopefully we can go in with a little bit more confidence to whatever the reality looks like in the fall.
I think it's fantastic that you're focused on using that why and what we know about best practice to really be that bridge during this time of uncertainty between home and school. So Brian, how can the folks listening today support your work, participate in this? How can the community be involved?
Yeah, I would say just, at minimum is it was really important to us that all the resources that we've been creating the last several weeks were available to everyone to use. So on our teachingstrategies.com website, we sort of did a whole takeover of our website that points families directly to resources directly for them, teachers and resources that were created for their work and individualization. So I think the more you can just share those resources that are, really product agnostic and can support any teacher or family at this point, to give them access to be a part of these discussions and leveraging some of this content to share with families or use themselves.
Excellent. So you'll see one of those polls pop up on your screen again. If you'd like to connect with the folks at Teaching Strategies or would like to learn more about the work that Brianne and her team are doing, you can take this next step to learn more. Thank you so much, Brianne.